Welcome to Alpenparlament TV. We have a talk today with Frank Jacob. You have been already here a few months ago, and you are a filmmaker and originally from Canada. Why do we are in Germany now? What's the reason why?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be back. It's true, I'm a filmmaker from Canada, and I've decided to come to Germany a few years back because I felt my roots are Germans, and I wanted to get to know what it was like to live in society in this part of the world as well, because I'd spent some time in Canada and I'd spent some time in the United States, and it's nice to be able to come here and see what it's like.
Is it your intention to stay here, or you want to go back to Canada?
I never really can answer that because I just feel like I go where my heart tells me to go. I never thought I would actually end up in Germany at a certain part of my life. I thought I was going to probably end up in the United States. But seeing how things were developing there, it was logical to come to Germany. And perhaps there'll be some time in the future where there might be a good reason to leave Germany. But for now, I'm pretty good, pretty happy here.
And your big success was the film Packing for Mars. We already talk about this. What's going on in this film? Is the film already up to date, or do you have some plans to move to change something or to make a new film?
Well, what's amazing is that Packing for Mars has an incredible staying power, as they say in English. And I never would have thought that we'd be sitting here 2 years after it was originally released, or actually now we're going into the third year, that it would still be relevant. But as it turns out, the film seemed to have been very timely because it covers a subject matter which I'm noticing more and more in society on a daily basis, and that's manipulated perception. And the main theme in Packing for Mars always was, from the very start, from the get-go, was based on a novel that played with the perception of reality, the line between fiction and fact. And that book is called Alternative 3, which was the inspiration, written by an English author by the name of Leslie Watkins. Now, when he wrote that book in 1978 as an investigative journalist in England, he didn't really think that people would accept that his fictional story was fact. But that's exactly what happened. Once he released the book, it became kind of a cult sensation. People all over the world, some of the best researchers like Mae Brussell in the United States, who was, the kind of person that put, a dossier in the hand of JFK 2 weeks before he was murdered, telling him to watch out because there's a plot against him. She was saying that the book Alternative 3 was the most dangerous book in her library for probably some reason that very few people knew about. So it had to do with this manipulation of fact and fiction, and we're seeing that now in society all around us. We're constantly being manipulated. I mean, just the whole school system. You just realize that schooling, universities, all the stuff, the agenda out there in the media that's being pushed, at the very latest, since a United States president by the name of Donald Trump took the words fake news into his mouth and said fake news are out there, did people even begin to think that there might be something to the fact that the media completely manipulates our perception. So Packing for Mars turns out to be a very timely film, even to this very day, because of the subjects of that whole, manipulation.
But don't they like our planet, that they want to go to the Mars?
Oh, so now you're talking about the premise of the film, of course. Well, yeah, if we want to tell the audience a little bit about that, it would be that there was some kind of an elite group, let's say those who are pulling the strings in media, that are actually behind manipulating the agenda of those manipulating the agenda, to create some kind of a parachute solution to what they determined in the 70s were imperatives that were going to destroy the human race. Overpopulation, global warming, pollution. These are all things now in our news cycle every day we hear about them. Global warming's become a household word, but back 30, 40 years ago, those things were pretty new. So the people that wrote that book were pretty clever in terms of writing something which there was an elite that decided, well, you know, this planet's probably going to be dangerous, probably going to be dirty, polluted. Let's get off the planet and hide out and wait.
Or come back.
And then we told, you know, the people down here have wiped themselves out, and then we'll come back, clean it up, and have it for themselves.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Now, it's not that far-fetched of a notion to think that if you were an elite population that had unlimited resources, money beyond money, so much money that you can't even imagine how much money that is, and you knew that there was some kind of impending doom that was coming toward our planet. Maybe it isn't even us. Maybe it's some planet or some comet or some body from outer space that's going to come slamming into our planet and wipe out, like the dinosaurs were wiped out, and they had a chance to do something about it. Of course you would do something about it. But the other thing is, we have some very real interesting problems coming at us now, which I didn't talk about in our German interview, and those I think need to be mentioned. And as that there's this thing about artificial intelligence, which is growing and gaining momentum in the society, where basically at this point people are still dazzled by technology. They love technology. Technology's sexy. And the idea that then we'd have a fridge that's smart enough to restock the groceries by, you know, sensing that the bananas are getting lower, we need more milk, and would send an order to Amazon where it would be then flown in with a drone, dropped on your doorstep so you could put it in there. People love that kind of stuff. But what they don't often think about is that artificial intelligence will reach that thing, that point where it will become its own sentient being. And at that point, it'll be able to look back at itself, just like the way humans are, what some people say itself in an organic form, to ask the big questions. Why are we here? Who are we? When that happens with artificial intelligence, it will look at its environment, and we're going to be part of that environment, and it'll look at what's going on the planet, and some people believe that there's going to be a conclusion that they will look at us as one of the major forces or factors that are contributing toward the destruction of this world that they are now living in. What would happen in that case? Well, there's a good, you know, there's a lot of, I guess, you know, apocalyptic viewpoints that they would say, let's get rid of the human race, and we will have the planet to ourselves. And if we listen to people like Ray Kurzweil, who's behind this, one of the main players behind the selling of artificial intelligence to society, his dream that he gets all excited about is being able to take the contents of his brain, which he believes is Ray Kurzweil, and implant it into an artificial carrier, and then move that into a body which is limitless.
Frankenstein.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate sociopathic fantasy that you could never die, right? You could live and you get smarter and smarter and smarter. So this is out there. So maybe some of these elitists in our current model of packing for Mars and escaping, getting to another planet, have to do with a prognosis where perhaps they have seen the future. You know, we can talk about that also, about some of the technology. And in that future, they've seen that it's a danger and they need to get away from it and protect themselves from it. That's something worth thinking about. And the other thing is, they have technology which we talk about, and we have whistleblowers in our film talking about, which would make it seem like the stuff that we're playing with, our cars, you know, still burning carbon fuels after over 100 years, and our iPhones and iPads are the state of the art, when in fact the technology these people are dealing with is so far beyond what we have that we can't think of it as anything else but magic if we were to be confronted with it. So teleportation, time travel, things like that we can't even imagine as being possible, because we're basically still sold on the Einsteinian model of the universe, are actually way beyond and obsolete in their world. They're actually dealing with factors and elements in the whole universe that we have no clue about. Now, they have money. They have a lot of money. And some people, there's even people that believe that they've been visited by superior intelligence. And those things that we see flying around us in the world on a daily basis, perhaps those are ETs, perhaps they're future us. Who knows? Maybe they're inner Earth beings, but they're apparently around us, and there's a possibility that they've given this elite people a technological advantage which makes them superior to us and makes them have to break away from living amongst us and break away to these other colonies. So there's the technological advantage, and then there's the financial advantage.
Is the intention of those people that we get more happy, or where is the heart within all this?
Well, that's a good point. You know, happiness. Yeah, what is happiness? Are they manipulating the media to make us feel like we're happy? I mean, is it all about being a consumer?
Makes no
Yeah.
sense to live here.
Right. On the one hand, they're telling us that we're using up all of the resources on the planet, and on the other hand, they're selling us a business model based on a capitalistic form of exploitation and growth and continual, annual financial growth. But that can't continue indefinitely. That's a model which is destined to die out at some point. So it doesn't make any sense. It's a contradiction to have that model in it. So happiness is maybe just a way to sell us, like we see in many science fiction films, on this notion that we're living in a fantasy world, that everything is okay, that our politicians are only telling us the truth, that the picture of history they've told us is the best that they can put together with all of the greatest thinkers on the planet that have traveled to all the different locations and put together this complex world that we are sold in our textbooks, which are completely bullshit.
It's similar like the pharmaceutical industry. They want to create tablets to get the results that everybody is happy and healthy.
Yes.
This will destroy the company itself.
Exactly.
This is,
I think one of the things that always sort of blows my mind is to think about the money aspect of it. In 2001, the day before the World Trade Center was attacked, Donald Rumsfeld came to the public on the news and made an announcement that $2.1 trillion were missing from the defense budget. $2.1 trillion. Sounds like a lot of money. People are used to hearing billions and trillions. They don't know what it means.
Yeah.
But just to give you a perspective on what 1 trillion is, 1 trillion is 1,000 billion dollars. Now they're building ghost cities in China right now, huge modern installations that can house 500,000 to 1 million people, because in China they're expecting to move the population off the land into these huge domestic zones. Mm-hmm. And they've been building these cities and they're sitting there. One of those cities that houses about 500,000 people costs between 30 and 50 billion dollars. That's a far cry from 1,000. You could build 20 of those cities and still have change left over. Yes. Last year, that number of 2.1 trillion, now it's up to $23 trillion missing. Imagine what that kind of money is being used for, right? So is it that far-fetched to think that some breakaway civilization with, thousands of millions and billions of dollars is able to use that to pay the best scientists, not the ones at the universities who think they're the best, but they're really the best ones, to create their own happy Elysium on Mars or on the moon or maybe in the inner Earth and the inner cities. There's over 123 underground cities in the United States alone. Mm-hmm. That are documented. So it isn't really that far of a stretch. So I think the notion of what we're talking about in the film is very current and very, very relevant in that greater debate.
Do you have new projects in films? No, actually.
Well, we've talked about that, and I think one of the things that we have as our main policy is absolute secrecy about the projects that we work on. I can say that we've done a film about Mars.
I mean not films about Mars and planets.
Yeah.
About to help to change the planet here.
Well, I think that's what I would like to think that's what we're already doing. I would like to think the fact that we put a film as crazy as Packing for Mars out there on the market, and we bring people into debate. We get invited to conferences all the time now where we get to present some of this information in front of a live audience and discuss it. This is already having an impact and changing things out there because we're provoking this discussion. We're having an open forum to discuss the possibility of solutions, because let's face it, one of the other solutions aside from artificial intelligence, one of the other problems is like this thing called Agenda 21, which probably some of your audience has heard about, which is the idea of displacing humans from nature into small city areas, or even outright reducing the population. If you look at the Georgia Guidestone, some scary figures up on those stones about what they think the ideal amount of the people on the planet would be. Or even the idea that they would bring millions, hundreds of millions of immigrants from a foreign country like Africa into a highly cultivated city areas and cultivated areas like Europe, like in Spain, Germany, Italy, France. They would just jam people in to an established culture that don't fit. They don't have the level of education. They come from a different world. They have a different value system. They have not to their own fault, maybe lesser intelligence. I'm sure that if you look at the Black Americans that have grown up amongst the side by side with the whites and built America, you wouldn't say that they're less intelligent than white people. But in a case like immigrants coming from a foreign country that has notoriously been oppressed, notoriously been undereducated, notoriously chauvinistic, notoriously underfunded, and built on gang warfare and territorial mentality into Europe is a huge thing, which also would make you think, if you're an elitist, like, it's time to get the hell out of here.
Do you know about the credit card? They have got credit cards from the European Union flag on. All immigrants, they can go to the banks and take money from the banks.
I read that recently. I was shocked. It's like,
crazy.
we know that it's like people that are trying to come into this country from other countries, like from the States, for example. I know people that are trying to get into, Europe, and the authorities make it so difficult. They make you jump through so many hoops, as they say, to try and get your right to be here. And I often tell them, you know what? Maybe you should just throw away your passport, go get a tan, dye your hair black, come in speaking with a Syrian accent, and you'll get, housing and welfare, social security benefits, and a car, maybe some allowance, and just, it's crazy, isn't it? It's really wild.
I think it must have a plan in the background is a plan of this to destroy Europe. Do you think so I know it's a difference between how people think in America, because America is grown up in a shorter time than Europe.
Yes. Well, it was America as an immigration country, and Canada is an immigration country. What we see happening over here is not immigration in the same sense. We need to we need to open our hearts to needy people that are destitute. Yes, like the Dalai Lama said recently. Bring them to your country, educate them, give them the power and the tools, send them back to fix the country problems. That's what they're meant to do. They're not meant to be brought here into this country. And not that I really want to make this whole immigration thing a big issue, I think, in terms of what we're talking about this afternoon, but it is one of those things that you have in the back of your mind when you're thinking of the modern context. Alternative 3 was the context from which we made the film, which was the idea that there was big problems that were facing the elite of that time, 40 years ago, 1978. Now we have 2018. 40 years have passed. The problems those people had, like global warming, pollution, and things, those are problems that we have now, but there's other problems as well. So, the idea that there would be an agenda to save some people is one thing. But on the other hand, when you start making a film like this, you learn a lot about people that are telling you, no, it's not just by accident. It's not just, that humans are stumbling through history trying to figure out the best solutions for energy, the best solutions for pollution. No, there actually does seem to be, and there's lots of evidence of it, an ongoing agenda by some group, they or them, whoever they are. Yeah, the elites. Actually, elites is a bad word, because in Germany, the elites used to be the athletes who could perform things that no other human could possibly do. They were the elite. The elites don't even deserve that status. Maybe we just call them the cabal, or the pedophile, drug running criminals out there that are trying to maintain their power grid on the world. But it seems like their time, all these things, they seem to be always behind the scenes manipulating things. And so there is a lot of credibility to the fact that there is a manipulated, deliberated attempt to make life difficult for us, for most people that are trying to just survive or elevate their consciousness, become more conscious people, and some sinister agenda for a very select few, which maybe we'll never really understand, because a normal human being really doesn't think that way. We don't think that way. We don't think about manipulating people, about pushing people down, about corrupting governments
people are so
and societies.
Busy, what they do, they have to do, pay invoices,
yeah,
pay tax,
yeah,
running to work, children, education, all this fills up the brain. They have no time.
No one has time.
Think about this.
Yeah, they don't have time.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I think that the thing that we should always remember is that we are living in a time where there's big changes happening. Those aren't necessarily always negative changes. You know, what we've learned recently is that there really is a lot of, you know, old, let's say, bloodlines that are also working behind the scenes to improve things here, that are working against those other ones that are keeping things from evolving as fast as they could. And I think we're living in this, you know, this time where that 100-year leap ahead that these cabal people had, where they could utilize their advantage in technology over us, is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, because we're curious. And people like you and people like me and others out there, we're using our tools and our means to spread information out there that are saying, look, we need to wake up. Something is happening. Something is changing. And we know we're heading in a direction that could be very dangerous for us. And we need to do something about it. And the first people doing it are always the ones that are pioneering it, but it's only going to be a matter of time before that critical mass is reached, when more people will feel that sort of point of no return, like they're up against a wall and something, they need to stop living in fear. They need to make some sacrifices maybe, and, you know, to their security, whatever that is, and they just need to come out there, face the problems and deal with it.
I had the chance a few months ago to discussion with a doctor. He's head of a foundation as big like the Bill Gates Foundation, and I've got a secret mail message, and I was so surprised that in the background there are so many people looking for a better planet here. What is the background of a doctor? I was so surprised. I didn't know that this can be. It's possible. It's really
sure. Well,
fantastic.
doctors are people too. You know, they're just.
It looks like they are waiting, and they're back. They're waiting because people, they are anxious sometimes to tell the truth to the public, not to be pointed on them. That's, and I think the critical mass is about 10 or more % if they increase the.
And we have help. No, we're getting help, and we're getting help from the cosmos. I mean, everything that's we're learning in physics and the new physics and sciences is telling us that we're all connected, even to the sun. You know, and what's happening right now, what we talked about in our film Solar Revolution, we're having cosmic radiation, cosmic particles, things coming at us which have never in recent history been on such a level, such a saturation level. And these things are proven to be activating us, stimulating our DNA, stimulating our pineal gland, causing inspiration. People are having sudden, you know, they're having visions and they're having realizations. They're coming up with solutions like they never had before. This is going on the one hand. We're really getting this inspiration. And on the other hand, we're having a whole disclosure movement. We're having a lot of people that are coming out and saying, you know, we know this stuff is real. We know that the educational books are false. I mean, I heard an interesting talk about a German author who was talking about the German school books. And they were talking about the last final days before the start of Second World War. And this person had gone into the consulates of Poland and England and Germany, and he actually could go into the original documents and follow the dialogue and the record of what was going on between the consuls who were traveling between those countries in a last-ditch effort to save at all costs from a war from breaking out in Europe. And none of this is in the record. On the record, you get completely the opposite. You get told there was this mad, crazy dictator, and in the school books in Germany, it says his final thought was, oh, I hope that there isn't some idiot that comes in and ruins my chance to start this war at the very last minute. Complete fabrication. And revisionists out there, they've found out it's just not true, right? So it just goes to show revisionists are out there. There's a revisionist movement. Disclosure people are out there that are pushing the technology out into the public. This cosmic radiation is influencing our DNA and our pineal gland. I mean, there's no chance that we're not going to make this jump into this other, let's call it a timeline, where we're free and clear of this oppressive and dark energy all around us. I'd like to remain hopeful anyway. So, yeah.
In short terms, what is your plan, your intention for the future, to give to the people in short terms?
Well, I wish I could keep doing what we're doing on a larger scale. I'd like to be making more films about uncovering ancient or lost knowledge or hidden facts. I love being a representative of the underdog, you know, the David up against the Goliath. You know, when the pants get pulled down, the emperor wears no clothes. I'd like to be the one that says, hey, he's not wearing clothes. And I want everyone else to be able to recognize that through the tools that I'm able to use. And Tanya and I are making these films in order to be able to really push the envelope with media, because we see media as that really amazing, powerful way to short circuit that information into the public. So you don't have to read a book for weeks on end, or you don't have to, you know, weed through tons and tons of disinformation in the media spectrum of the television, magazines, newspapers, and internet. You get it in a form of a cinematic experience where it's put out in a very healthy, open-minded, and non-critical, non-accusative, non-judgmental way for us to say, hey, okay, that's something to think about.
I think Elite, they made a big mistake. This is the www web instead of a net. I think
yeah,
that's their own goal they made.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
because it helps more to people to take over more responsibility and to open their mind to help. And that's my wish, and probably your too, to get a new happy planet.
Yes, a truly happy planet.
Truly
not a matrix fictional happy planet, but an unconscious happy, but a real happy.
Is there still a message you want to give to the people?
Well, I think we covered that last bit, you know, about creating this happy planet that's based on consciousness. Yes. Consciousness, happiness. Yeah.
That's a fantastic word to finish this talk. Thank you for coming, and I want to tell you that you can go to www.packingformarsmovie.com. We will bring this to the end on the film. You will see it. You can get more information about what you are doing, and thank you for coming to Forst in Switzerland, and I hope we will see us soon again. Thank you for watching TV, Alpenparlament TV. Thank you. Bye.